but that's okay. So we're gonna try to do it. There it is. There we go. Hello, all my BC Wrestle Pod nerds out there, and welcome to another episode of our Takedown Troop post show here at BC Wrestle Pod. My name is Mikey, also known as El Jefe of BC Wrestle Pod, and I'm here to take you through another rendition of TNA Wrestling, specifically the Thursday, June 25th edition of the episode. Let me see if turning off my camera is going to fix the stuttering. So we're going to kind of be doing some weird stuff this evening because it seems that the internet doesn't want to cooperate with me. So it seems that turning off my camera helps a little bit to fix the stuttering. So I think that's what we're going to do, unfortunately. Not how I exactly want the show to go, but hey, you know what? It is what it is at this point. But my name is Mikey, also known as El Jefe of BC Wrestle Pod, and you will be seeing a floating image of me for the rest of the show in order to kind of fix what's going on. It is extremely hot here in the desert, and it's kind of messing with the internet. But hey, I'm here to have a good time. I might turn my camera on in a little bit to see how that goes, but I am here to talk about the June 25th edition of TNA Wrestling. Normally, I do have my co-host with me, Radio Free Will, but he is unavailable this evening. So it's just going to be me tonight, and we're going to talk about not only the go-home show for TNA, which happened last night, but we're also going to make our predictions for TNA Slammiversary. But before I get into all of that, if you are new here to BC Wrestle Pod, then you already know the drill. We go live on multiple occasions, and we have social media at BC Wrestle Pod, shop.fourthwall.com. That's our store, not our social medias. Social medias at BC Wrestle Pod, and we have a coffee bot. So let's just get into it. So this particular episode of TNA was not necessarily something to write home about. I feel like we got to what was left of the pre-recording episodes that they did when they were in Denver, Colorado earlier this month, and we're just going to get into it. So starting off the show, we jump straight into a whole bunch of things. We have the Hardys kick off the show. And basically what this ended up being is that the Hardys talk about how they're going to win the tag team championship ladder match at Slammiversary. They're going to take out the Righteous and the System in order to reclaim the TNA Wrestling Tag Team titles. This prompts the System to interrupt and then the Righteous to interrupt, and everyone gets into a brawl. So essentially what ends up happening here is that this is the final go-home angle for the tag team championship ladder match. It was okay. I'm not going to lie. We've talked ad nauseum here on BC Wrestle Pod how everything that the Hardys have been involved in, it seems that for the most part, they are always the ones that end up going over. But it is what it is at this point. I am looking forward to the ladder match, especially when we cut backstage after this opening segment, because we find Order 4 talking to the suit, Daria Ray. Daria is just losing her mind because we're making changes to Slammiversary and all this stuff. Mustafa Ali comes up, and before he begins talking, Daria does tell him it's like, I'm working on getting you an opponent for Slammiversary. We'll find out when we get there. But she wants to reward model employees who aren't causing issues. So because Order 4 has been model workers and model wrestlers, Daria rewards Order 4 by adding the Great Hands into the tag team championship ladder match. So where originally it was just a triple threat, now it is a fatal four-way ladder match for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. So this should be interesting, and I'm excited to see how this ends up going. All right, let me turn my camera back on and see what happens here. Hopefully we don't stutter. If not, camera has to go back off, unfortunately. So we're going to see how that turns out. All right, camera go on. maybe. I don't know. Possibly. We'll see what happens. All right, there we go. Okay, we're still stuttering, so unfortunately, camera's got to go back off now. So frustrating, I swear, man. Anywho, let's keep the show going. So after this backstage segment between the Order 4 and Daria Ray, we end up getting into the next part of our episode, which was technically supposed to be our first match of the evening, which was Ash by Elegance versus Mara Sade. Now, Mara makes her entrance, Ash makes her entrance, and then I honestly cannot describe in words exactly what I witnessed, but it seemed like we saw Ash have a mental breakdown. She doesn't appreciate being called a mark. And yeah, so that was the thing that happened. And essentially she bows out of her match and makes M by Elegance take her place. So then it becomes Mara Sade versus M by Elegance. And this wasn't even a match, y'all. I'm not even gonna lie. It was insane. This was not great. And we didn't even get the full match because Elena Black, who was watching on the ramp to begin with, comes down, interjects herself into the match, and causes a disqualification. And then a brawl breaks out. We have Heather and M by Elegance begin to attack Mara Sade and Indy Hartwell, who was at ringside. Indy and Elena Black get into it. And then Rosemary and Allie come out for the save. This was just an all over the place type of segment. Again, Allie and Rosemary will be facing the Elegance brand for the Knockouts tag team titles. And then we'll find out later in the show that Indy, Elena, and Mara Sade would be going up against each other in a triple threat match on the Countdown show. And yeah, this was just not great. I don't understand what we are doing with the Knockouts division because the booking is awful. Like we have very little knockouts division left. I don't know what happened to Jada Stones. How come Tasha Steeles is not wrestling? And what we do have on screen is just like we're running the story with Laying Lee and Zaya Brookside, and all the other women are just kind of just chilling and sitting around. This is insane. I want better for the knockouts division. This was a whole mess. But we keep moving forward though, because after, well, I don't even want to call that a match, but we move forward. We get a pre-tape promo from Eric Young, who is not impressed by his opponent, Ricky Sosa. And Ricky Sosa is not being respectful and taking this opportunity seriously. So it is up to Eric Young to teach Ricky Sosa a lesson. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, all right, Eric, you just keep talking. Like, this has been a weird ride for him. You know, him and Macklin had a thing, and then him and Mike Santana fought for a little bit, and now we're putting Eric Young with Ricky Sosa. This is just bizarre to me. But honestly, it is what it is. It gets Ricky Sosa on the pay per view. Eric Young is a good hand to have, but the motivation behind Eric Young and Ricky Sosa's feud is weird. But I'll take what I can get at this point. After this pre-tape Eric Young promo, we get into the next part of the show, which sees AJ Francis in action. Essentially, this is a squash match against Manny Murkoch. AJ wins within 5 minutes of his tune-up squash match. But after the match is the most important part because we see Elijah looking to stand in what looks to be some sort of U-Haul truck. And he talks to in this promo to AJ that AJ and his lawyers have taken his likeness, taken his catalog of music, and has taken essentially everything from Elijah. And so at Slammiversary, Elijah is going to come for this Ozempic Suge Knight, which I did get a chuckle out of, but just crazy. But Elijah is coming for everything, and he vows to take down AJ Francis and whoop his butt at Slammiversary. And I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, all right, well, again, I've not been the biggest fan of this feud going into Slammiversary, but it is what it is at this point, and we are going to have a good time, so it should be fine. Moving on, though, we go on from AJ Francis's squash match, into another match, which sees Zaya Brookside taking on Harley Hudson. Um, I will say this was actually one of the more competitive matches on the show, so that was fun to see. But again, we're kind of just waiting and keeping Lang Lee and Zaya Brookside apart until Slammiversary. And so this was an okay back and forth. I don't think this was the greatest match, but it definitely was one of the more competitive ones. And honestly, I do have to shout out Zaya and Harley. I think they did pretty good for this one. But Zaya Brookside would end up picking up the victory over Harley Hudson. Zaya would continue to hold Harley in the submission until Lang Lee comes out for the save to chase off Zaya Brookside, thus kind of giving us our closing angle between Lang Lee and Zaya Brookside heading into their match for Slammiversary. I'm gonna save my additional thoughts on a lot of these builds when we get to our predictions for Slammiversary because this is insane of how we got here. And I'm not been the biggest fan of the build for a lot of these matches, but we'll talk more about that when we get to our Slammiversary predictions. But right now, let's get into this. So we get the Slammiversary World Title Summit. This is the final meeting, or at least what was supposed to be the final meeting between Mike Santana and Nick Nemeth. So we have Gia Miller kind of being the mediator for this summit. Mike Santana on one side, Nick Nemeth on the other, and then TNA president Carlos Silva is in here for some apparent reason. And basically, what this boils down to is that Nick Nemeth commends Mike Santana for being world champion, but he's going to take the title from Mike Santana at Slammiversary. Mike Santana says that the TNA World Champion should be somebody who's going to every week come in and put everything on the line for this company, and calls out Nick Nemeth for being away and taking other wrestling gigs and not being here for TNA and showing that he is capable of being the TNA World Champion. Nick Nemeth gets some jabs in. Mike Santana throws a punch. Ryan Nemeth comes in. A brawl breaks out. Nick Nemeth ends up hitting Mike Santana on the head with the title and not punches him and leaves Mike Santana a bloody mess as he leaves the meeting room. Um, okay. It's been the same thing for the last couple of weeks, so nothing new has been developed here. And this is not the closing angle because we would get one more segment coming down here, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But after the World Title Summit, we get into a promo from Moose. So Moose comes down. He's with JDC. Moose talks about how, come Slammiversary, it ends with the system. He's going to take the system down and finally, especially Eddie Edwards, and put everything behind him. But Eddie Edwards comes out and interrupts. And essentially, this is just a back and forth to build up to their match. Moose adds the stakes here because Alicia Edwards is going to get involved. So now Eddie Edwards versus Moose at Slammiversary this Sunday is now a no surrender match. And the way that works is that this match will continue to go on, and you lose the match when your corner throws in the towel on your behalf. So very interested to see how that goes. But again, just a back and forth to finalize what we're getting at Slammiversary. A lot of talking this episode, and not really good talking, but it is what it is at this point. So after we get the promo from Moose and Eddie Edwards and getting the new stipulation for the no surrender match at Slammiversary, we get a pre-tape from Ricky Sosa. Ricky Sosa is here to make a name for himself in TNA, and if he has to go through Eric Young to do so, he will. He loves this business. He wants to do great, and he ultimately just cuts the babyface promo. And thus, this is the last thing that we set up and hear from Ricky Sosa, which officially solidifies the final remarks for both Eric and Ricky heading into their match at Slammiversary. After the pre-tape from Ricky Sosa, we get into our main event match segment. There wasn't a lot of wrestling this episode, and this was an Ultimate X preview match in which we have our X Division champion, Cedric Alexander, teaming up with Frankie Kazarian and Mr. Elegance to take on the face team of Fabian Eichner, Leon Slater, and Casey Navarro. I will say this was probably the best match of the night. And unfortunately, there is no competition because with a night full, that is little of wrestling, two, a lot of talking. This was the most competitive and probably the funnest match of the bunch. This was a lot of good back and forth action. The heels and the faces really, were doing a number on each other. But ultimately, Frankie Kazarian would pick up the win by pinning Leon Slater for it was a Leon Slater. I think it was Leon Slater or Fabian Eichner for the win. And so I think, well, Frankie Kazarian got the win. So my wrestling logic tells me he's not going to win that Ultimate X, but it is what it is at this point. And then we end the show proper with this final segment in which Nick Nemeth comes out, cut a promo talking about how Mike Santana is not making it to Slammiversary now. Mike throws Ryan Nemeth and attacks him and beats him up. Security has to come out as Mike and Nick Nemeth are trying to brawl with one another. And the show ends with the two of them being separated. Overall, this was an okay go home episode of TNA. Not a lot happened. This was just some closing promos, some like what was left over from the Denver, Colorado tapings. But now let's get into things proper. Let me just switch things up really quick. So what we're going to do right now is we are going to make our predictions for TNA Slammiversary, which is happening this Sunday, June 28th, which is going to be taking place, or it is going to be airing beginning at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern for the countdown, I think. No, anyways, it's going to be airing early in the afternoon in order to not collide with Forbidden Door, AEW's Forbidden Door, so that should be fun. So the way that predictions work here on the show is that we have a predictions league, and what we are going to do with this prediction league is that we run our prediction season from Slammiversary all the way to TNA's Rebellion, which is going to be a lot of fun. And we make predictions in who we think is going to be the winner of the match based on everything that we have been given. So what I'm going to do right now is I will be making my predictions for TNA Slammiversary. And then you will see mine and Will's predictions for Slammiversary come this Sunday when I post it all over the social medias. So let's get into it, shall we? So these matches are in no particular order. We do have two matches that are on the countdown, and then we have a good chunk of matches on the main card. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through these matches. I'm going to kind of talk about how we got here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think is going to happen, and then I'm going to ultimately make my final choice. So let's get into it. Starting things off with the countdown to Slammiversary, we have this triple threat match, which sees Indy Hartwell, Mara Sade, and Elena Black here. Now, the way that this is happening is the fact that this match was just made on this episode. These girls have been fighting with each other. Technically, it's been Indy and Elena here, who have been going back and forth, and Mara Sade is here just to be here. So I don't know. Honestly, I'm just gonna go with my heart on this one. I'm gonna go with Mara Sade. I think she should be the one to win because I love Indy and Elena, but like they've been feuding for a while and they haven't really stepped it up in terms of what we have been doing with them. So I'm gonna go with Mara Sade just because I can. And then the only other match so far advertised for the Countdown to Slammiversary show, which is going to be happening at 12 p.m. Eastern. The pay-per-view is starting at 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We have Eric Young versus Ricky Sosa. And so, essentially, I'm going to go with Ricky Sosa here. I think he should win this match. He's new to the roster. I think Eric Young can take a loss. He'll be fine at this point in his career. So I'm going to go with Ricky Sosa here to win. Now, getting into the main card, again, we're going to no particular order. We're going to first talk about AJ Francis versus Elijah. So the story going into this match is that AJ Francis has taken Elijah's music catalog and his likeness and essentially been like a Suge Knight-esque character, taking everything that matters away from Elijah. And Elijah is our plucky underdog who vows to get everything back. So I am hoping, I'm trying to think here. I am hoping that what's going to end up happening is Elijah wins, but I don't think he is going to. So this should be interesting to see how this goes. I think AJ's been very good as a heel. However, I think because he's gotten the one over Elijah for the majority of this feud so far, I think I'm going to go with Elijah to win this one. Alrighty. Moving on, we have our no surrender match between Eddie Edwards and Moose. So again, you lose the match when your towel is thrown in by your corner. So this match is essentially no DQ. And the only way to stop the match is for the towel to be thrown in from the respective corner. I don't know. Something tells, you know what? Originally, I was going to pick Eddie Edwards because I'm trying to factor in that the system shouldn't be losing too much in the evening. But I feel like, I don't know, man. So, I don't know. It's really hard for me to pick because on the one hand, I think Eddie Edwards as the leader of the system should win, but Moose has always been on a losing streak, and he's been getting, outnumbered by the system. I think something is going to go down, but ultimately, I think I'm going to go with Moose on this one. I think he's picked up too many losses so far, and I think he's due for a win. And because there's no championship or number one contendership on the line, then we should be okay when it comes to all of that. Really quickly, I do want to shout out my good friend Nick, who is in the chat. Thank you for popping in really quick, friend. Running into some technical issues, so I had to turn the camera off in order to stabilize the internet. But thank you for being here. And we're in the middle of doing TNA Slammiversary predictions, which is happening this Sunday. Anywho, so let's keep this going again for no surrender. I think because Moose has been on a losing streak, I'm gonna have Moose win this one, and we shall move on going into our championship matches now. And the first one we're going to talk about is the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championships, which sees Heather and M by Elegance representing the Elegance brand, taking on the Undead. I love that, Nick. Moose for the win. I think Moose is due for a win. But the Elegance brand girls, who are the champions, are taking on the team of Rosemary and Allie. This has been a really fun story that we've been telling so far with the Undead Realm and Mara Sade kind of be adjacent to them. And honestly, I love the Elegance brand girls, but I'm going to go with Rosemary and Allie, especially since Allie just signed officially with TNA like a week and a half ago. I think, and plus the Elegance brand girls have kind of just been holding these titles and not really doing much with it. So I'm going to have Rosemary and Allie win because I think it's due time for Rosemary to have Allie just return. No ticky ticky. I can see that, but I think that Rosemary should get a championship run. She has been here forever. I don't think they're ever going to let her hold the Knockouts Championship again. So I think I'm going to go with Rosemary and Allie here. Stranger things have happened, but it should be a really fun match. Going from the Knockouts Tag Team Championships to the TNA World Tag Team Championships, this is a fatal four-way in a for these TNA World Tag Team Championships. Yes, the Elegance brand. It's hard to pick against them, but I'm gonna go with Allie and Rosemary. But in a ladder match for the TNA World Championships, you have the System defending their titles against the Hardys, the Righteous, and added to the match from this Go Home episode is the Great Hands. I really do think this match is going to be a lot of fun. But like I said previously, because I don't think we got every championship on the line, and the System is defending both of their titles that they have right now. I think the System are going to retain the titles. As much as I want the Righteous to win the titles, I think that TNA is not just going to is not going to give them the titles, which is insane to me. But on the other hand, because this is a ladder match, nobody needs to get pinned, so you can have the Righteous win and nobody get pinned, and then all that good stuff. But I think the system is going to retain, unfortunately. But I really want the Righteous to win. I think they deserve this win after everything they've done so far in TNA. And I agree with you, Nick. My heart wants the Righteous, but I'm going to pick the system because the system needs to retain their titles in some capacity. Moving on here, we have our TNA International Championship, and what makes this match a little bit interesting is that it's an open challenge. We do not know who is going to answer the open challenge, but it is going to be Mustafa Ali, who is the TNA International Champion, taking on the challenger. And as much as I would like to cause chaos in TNA and have the challenger win, depending on who debuts or comes through that curtain, I do have Mustafa Ali retaining the international championship, unfortunately. And I really hope they give Ali something more to do because I think he's great, but I feel like we're not utilizing him to his fullest potential at the moment. Alrighty, we're coming down to the wire and we're getting into our final three matches. The first one that we are going to talk about is the TNA X Division Championship, and this is the Ultimate X match. So I'm really excited. Again, for those of you who don't know, Ultimate X is that championship is suspended above the ring on the red ropes that intersect each other, creating an X. And the way that you have to win this match and win the title is you have to unhook the belt from the X hanging above the ring and then land on the ring and have both feet on the ground in order to do so. Now, there are 7 participants in this one. You have 6 TNA signed folks, and then a special person being entered into this match. But you have Cedric Alexander, the champion, going up against Leon Slater, Casey Navarro, Frankie Kazarian, Fabian Eichner, Mr. Elegance, and of course, the legendary wrestler himself, Amazing Red. So, in our predictions, because there are 7 participants, what we like to do is we like to pick 3 possibilities to win, and you get the point if one of your 3 picks ends up getting it. So for my picks for Ultimate X, I have Cedric Alexander, Leon Slater, and Casey Navarro. I think these 3 guys are your young ones who are going to keep this X division alive. I think it's too soon for Mr. Elegance and Fabian Eichner to get a championship run. Amazing Red is just here to be a spot monkey, which is fine. Frankie Kazarian doesn't need the title because he's already an established talent. But I have Cedric, Leon, and Casey as one of the 3 to win. But gun to my head, I'm going to pick Cedric to retain. Like I said, I don't think the system are going to lose every match this evening on Slammiversary, but we shall see. Now we get in our 2 main title matches. The first one we're going to talk about is the TNA World Knockouts Championship. This one's really hard because on the one hand, I don't think that Lang Lee has gotten a fair shake as being a champion. She finally got it off of Ariana Grace back in April, and her best friend Zaya Brookside has turned on her. I'm going to go with Lang Lee as much as I think that I don't know, man. This one's going to be hard. Because I can make an argument for Zaya Brookside to get it, but I think Lang Lee is going to continue to hold on to this title, so I'm going to go with Lang Lee beating Zaya Brookside. And then last but certainly not least, we have our TNA World Championship match, Mike Santana versus Nick Nemeth. This is also another hard one to pick because Mike Santana's contract is coming up in July. No word if he's re-signed with the company quite yet. But I am going to go with Mike Santana to retain here. I think we're going to get a rematch between him and Nick Nemeth down the line. I don't think this match ends cleanly, but I can't bet against the Puerto Rican superstar, Mike Santana. So, yeah, that is going to be my predictions for TNA Slammiversary. Once again, TNA Slammiversary will be at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. So it is going on Sunday. So if you're planning on watching it, I highly recommend it. But yeah, that's going to be it for me this evening. And thank you so much for tuning in. Again, the last thing to note is we got one more thing happening this week, and that is going to be on Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, as we will be doing a live watch along for AEW's Forbidden Door. So it's going to be a fun one. But I got to get up on out of here. So thank you so much for tuning in. From all of us at BC Wrestle Pod to you at home, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay iconic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. I'll see you Sunday for our Forbidden Door watch along. But until then, sayonara, adios, and until next time, y'all. Remember, I love you, love yourself, love others. But until next time, peace.